Hello there and welcome to the Tunes From Doolin Podcast, an Irish traditional music interview series presented by myself, Charles Mono, and featuring guests from County Clare and beyond who come and visit us here in Doolin. On each episode of the show, we are guided by tunes picked and played by our guest, and we talk about various topics related to traditional music, such as sources of inspiration, repertoire, style, memories, and much, much more. If you'd like to support this podcast and the Tunes From Doolin project in general, you can head over to our Patreon page, patreon.com/tunesfromdoolin, where you can sign up and choose a support level that you can sustain. It doesn't have to be much. Even a cup of coffee per month really goes a long way. The link is in the show notes. Thank you so much for your support. Our guest for this episode is Alan Reid, great banjo player from County Leitrim who moved to North Clare a few years ago. Hope you enjoy our tunes and chat, and make sure to stick around till the end to know more about Alan, his music and various projects. Enjoy. Class tune. Thanks a million, Alan.
No bother.
Welcome to Doolin.
Thank you.
You are played the banjo today, but you play many other instruments. What did you just play for us?
I played two jigs that I composed during, I suppose, the first lockdown in 2020. The first one is called Fish and Chips at Finavarra, and the second one is called Turn at Doonyvarden. So they kind of date from the time when we were quite confined to our own localities, so I was hanging around with my wife and a toddler all the time, so them two tunes happened.
They're local new compositions.
Local, yeah, Burren tunes.
But you're not from the Burren originally.
No, I'm from North Leitrim. I'm from a place called Killargy, which is in the parish of Drumahare. I would have went to school in Drumkieran. So I left there at 17 to go to college in the University of Limerick, and been kind of around Limerick for a while, and then I moved to the Burren 6 years ago.
Nice. You obviously like it.
Yeah.
Before we talk more about the Burren and things, I'd be quite interested to hear about your years in Limerick, because you obviously, when you left home, you were very young.
Yeah.
And did you move down, was it music related, college?
Yeah, I did the BA in Irish Music and Dance, so music was kind of all I'd wanted to do. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it, but I knew it would involve music in the end. So I did that course, and then I did the MA in Irish Traditional Music Performance as well. Kind of way straight away after that, but so yeah, that was kind of the plan.
Well, the plan went well.
Yeah.
And were you playing the banjo at that time, or because I know you play banjo, bouzouki, mandolin, the bowron, and I'm pretty sure you play other things, anything with strings probably. But what did you start on, or what's?
So I started playing bowron when I was about 9, and then I picked up whistle and harmonica when I was about 10 or 11, and was kind of messing around on them. I got a banjo when I was about 12, I think. And that's what I would have been playing when I was in college. I'd yet to get a bouzouki. I got a bouzouki maybe around 3rd year of college. So I'm playing that since, and probably like at least around here for the pub gigs and stuff, I probably play more bouzouki than anything else. But banjo and bouzouki would be probably my main, what I'd consider my main 2 instruments.
Okay, cool. And college, so that was 4 year in the BA followed by another year in the masters. Can you tell us a bit about that time and how it was? And
yeah, it was great. We were like, it was, I suppose it was more to be, I think what I was kind of excited for was to be around other people who wanted to play music, and in the end, that's the biggest advantage of going there, was the other people that you meet who were doing the same thing, so you could collaborate and learn from and stuff. So there was the first 2 years were in Limerick. 3rd year involved going to Sweden for 6 months and doing work experience, and then going to Cape Breton in Canada for 6 months to do an international exchange. So 3rd year was great. Probably what I remember most about the BA, at least, was the time I wasn't in Limerick, just adventuring, playing other music. Back then in Limerick for 4th year, and then I did the MA as well. So
yeah, it's very interesting because I, when I just finished the course there, I think the BAs that I knew, they didn't get that chance because of COVID to do the international travel, and the fact that you mentioned those trips abroad. It's a good transition actually, because I wanted to ask you what kind of music you play apart from Irish music. 'Cause I know that you know tunes from a lot of different places. So yeah, what kind of, was that the start of your interest in other music?
No, I've just always been in whatever I like the sound of, I will kind of listen to and pursue. Like I'd know a lot of Swedish tunes, whether or not I can kind of do them justice or play them anyway appropriately. But I did learn loads of that kind of thing. Loads of Cape Breton tunes as well. Cape Breton and Irish music have a bit of an overlap anyway. I wouldn't say they're so far away stylistically or historically. So I play a good bit of that. I listen to a lot of Macedonian and Bulgarian music. At one stage in college, I was listening to instrumental Arabic music for a good year or two as the main thing I was listening to. And I've always liked, the likes of metal and a lot of electronic music and stuff. So I've always been I listen to music a lot of different kind of things, kind of open to any genre having something good in it. I do believe there are some genres that exceptions.
Don't have anything good in them. We want names.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. And how do you find that certain genre influence your playing of Irish music more than others, or do you kind of get inspirations maybe in the tunes you compose? Or
yeah, like I think maybe when I was in college and when I was composing, I was probably composing with more a kind of progressive or experimental kind of framework in my head. I don't really like many of the tunes I composed at that time, but I think it was just that I had these ideas in my head and I had to get rid of them. So like I would have wrote things influenced by Swedish music and things like that. But I think with learning that other type of music, or at least being in an environment where you're like immersed in a place where the folk tradition of that area is not your own, like is or isn't Irish music. You like when you play Irish tenor banjo, when you're in Sweden and everyone plays fiddle and there's a lot of long notes and stuff, it certainly is good for technique to try and just hold your own. And so
the challenge.
Yeah, there was a lot of challenge, and like I don't think Irish tenor banjo is particularly suited for playing a lot of the slower Swedish polskas, but the act of kind of having to play them every week in, you know, social settings in Sweden definitely helped me skill wise, I would say.
Nice. I'd love to ask you a few more things about composing tunes, but do you want maybe to play another set of tunes for us?
Sure. Yeah.
Really brilliant, Alan. What were those tunes?
The first one was the Gosson Bate's father. It's a single reel, I think. Is it Jack Maguire, Sean Maguire, the fiddle player? His father is the source of that one. I think I originally learned it off a Danu album, which would have been one of the first.
He's the one who was beating his father. So.
Yeah, maybe. I think it's thought that some of the stranger tunes in his repertoire, he's the source for several ones. I think.
Nice.
I presume maybe he made them up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I made the second one up. That's called Florry Holleran, after one of my most colourful ancestors. And the last one, I think it has a Scots Gaelic name that translates to mackerel and tatties, but I intended on playing a Cape Breton tune at the end, but it had the same first phrase, and I ended up going into that one and sticking with it. But we used to play that one when I was studying abroad in Cape Breton anyway, because there was plenty of Scottish pipes around, and it fits on that. So
well, that's fine. Sounds great. Anyway, great that you actually played a tune of your own again. That second one, because I wanted to ask you more about composition, but now I have a more specific question. What about this ancestor?
So I got really into doing my family tree a few years ago, because nothing was known really on my father's side of the family, other than that Scotland was involved, and several of my nearly all my ancestors on that side of the family came from Mayo, North Mayo, and they left in the famine, and several of them were. We have more information on several of them because they were arrested several times.
Oh, yes.
And he was arrested a few times. But a lot of the times it seems that they were just being arrested for having no homes and stuff. But we have the most detail about him, and he seemed to be quite the most troublesome.
He's the one with the longest criminal record. Yeah,
he ended up living in a place called Yetholm in the Scottish borders, which is now famous for being it's a very popular place for the English and Scottish Romany, Gypsy and traveller communities. Okay. It's thought that he was able to live there because he was kind of on the margins of society. In every other town he could move in there, and he could kind of live alongside them for a while. But he was he although living through the famine, he died in his mid-80s, which again seems larger than life.
quite the character, and definitely deserves a tune, I suppose.
Yeah,
nice. So you said you've been obviously composing tunes for a long time, since your early days in college. You were saying it was influenced by other types of music. How did you get into composing tunes? And
would have just always been making up stuff when practicing on the banjo. I would have composed tunes in school as well. I would have recorded them, on voice recorder on the phone. I can't remember really any that I recorded back then, but some of the earlier ones in college would have kind of survived, but most of them, I found sheet music of some of them, and I wouldn't be that into them. But I think the way it works for me is, if I have some kind of an idea in my head, either I'm hearing something or there's something interesting, harmonically or melodically I want to develop on, I have to kind of finish the idea before I can do something else, even if the idea doesn't really excite me anymore. If I can't, I kind of have to just put them to bed.
Yes. So it kind of it makes sense. I suppose it kind of starts with a small bit of a tune of that idea, and then you just expand from it and kind of make it a whole. Yeah,
like the Florry Holleran one there, I was at the time I composed that, I was looking into a lot of the older Scottish collections of tunes, and I was kind of noticing something that was in some of them that I found very interesting. And I was also listening to a lot of field recordings of the whistle player Jim Donoghue, and he was doing something that was kind of similar. So I had this kind of link between the late 18th century, early 19th century Scottish collections that I was kind of obsessed about, and when I was transcribing the Jim Donoghue stuff. So I decided to write a tune that kind of developed the kind of, it's kind of, they're tonally ambiguous and maybe very modal ideas that I had at the time. So I came out with that one, and because Florry is kind of, he's existed in around the time of a lot of the books that I was looking at, the manuscripts, I decided to stick his name on it, and because of the North Connacht Scottish link as well, it seemed to work as a name, because naming them, usually I have tunes and I until I have to use them for something, I don't put a name on them a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it's not like, because some of the composers I typically I'd be thinking of the likes of Junior Crean, let's say, they would, it feels at times that the name or the actual subject of the tune is the source of inspiration. Yeah. When for you it starts musically and you name them after.
Yeah, like sometimes, like the first jig I played earlier, the fish and chips at Finavarra, I was eating fish and chips at Finavarra when the first part of that kind of just crept into my head. And I think I finished it that night. Later on, I think I hummed it into my phone or something. Yeah. To remember the phrase. Yeah, and I think I don't write. I don't have a lot of great success writing in strictly major keys, or at least I don't keep a lot of the tunes that I've written in major keys. So at the time I was kind of excited. I was happy with the first part, so I was kind of driven to finish it off the same day.
No, it sounds great. I was telling you before we started the recording that there's like other tune that you've come out I really enjoy. But since you're talking about the fish and chips at Finavarra, so people might not know where Finavarra is. That's here in. Is it already in County Galway? Is it still North Clare? It's just before the border, is it?
It's just before the border, I think. Yeah, so it's a peninsula at the very, very north of Clare. As the crow flies, you'd be very close to Barna and Connemara in Galway. But if you were to drive it, it would be an hour, as you have to go by land. So it's just a really beautiful place that I happen to live quite close to.
And so what brought you to North Clare after the few years in Limerick? What made you decide on moving over?
So my wife and I, we wanted to move. When we finished college, we lived for a year in Limerick still, and it just we just didn't like it. While we were in college, it seemed fine to put up with living in a town. It didn't suit me at all. A city, yeah, or in the suburbs of a city. But I'm from a very rural place. I'm used to making noise and not annoying other humans. So we moved out to North Tip for a while, North Tipperary, Bird Hill. It was nicer, but I suppose there wasn't a whole lot of music. Of course there was music around. So we decided we wanted to move to Clare. Originally we were going to move somewhere outside of Ennis in the country, but we ended up on a whim. We checked out a house in between Kilfenora, Tuamgraney and Ballyvaughan, and we ended up moving there instead, and We're still there.
And the first reason why you decided to look for Clare was actually music, that there would be more music on top of being outside of a town.
I knew that I was going to work in music at that time. I was teaching music more or less every day of the week. It was 6 full days of teaching anyway when I lived in Bird Hill, between teaching in cultus branches and schools and in the university and at home. And I was even doing a bit of online teaching at the time.
That's pre-COVID.
And I was gigging at night.
Visionary, yeah.
And I was gigging at night as well. So and the odd time we'd be coming to Doolin or Spanish Point for gigs from Limerick. So I was like, it seems better to be on the Clare side of things. I never got asked to do a gig in Tipperary, for instance, with 2 years there. So we wanted to live there just so that we were adjacent to all the musicy goings on. So we ended up going to North Clare, not really knowing what was up there apart from the existence of Doolin. I didn't realise I was as close to Doolin as I was when I moved there either. Like, I knew it would be closer, but I didn't realise it was only a 15-minute drive away. Which was a great plus when I realised that.
Ideal. Well, it's great for us to have you and Rachel here. Great addition to the music scene in Doolin. So you said you did play in Doolin sometimes beforehand. What's your first memories of Doolin?
Just that there was a lot of tourists. I was only ever there at night first. Just that the place was busy and that I kind of liked that you could just play tunes and everyone seemed happy with that. There wasn't any expectation for the person with the guitar to start singing acoustic pop covers, which in some of the larger towns, when you have Irish music, it's kind of expected that every few sets that the vibe will change and someone will start singing pop music on it.
Or if not pop music, they'll go into Whiskey in the Jar. And,
maybe, but in Limerick City, I think it was
pop songs.
Yeah, like it seemed to always be for which I don't mind them, but I like them separate to the trad.
It's good that you picked that up very early. So you didn't come to Doolin before that, like you really started coming when for gigs.
Yeah.
And also I'm glad to hear you got that vibe that in Doolin it was allowed to just play trad, because I think it's what the village has been about for 50 odd years.
Yeah. Yeah, like I was aware of Doolin. I'd heard of it, obviously. I'd heard of Michael Russell, and like the only thing I knew about Doolin was that there was a ferry to the Aran Islands and that there was music there. And it's now moving here, I still think they're kind of the two major things that people who come here are looking for. I was laughing with a friend yesterday. I was telling her a story that a couple of weeks ago we were setting up for a gig in one of the pubs here in Doolin, and a group of people came up and said, "Is it just diddly dee that you're going to play, or are you going to sing or something?" And I said, "It's just diddly dee," and they weren't impressed. They wanted to go somewhere else, and I said, "You're going to get diddly dee everywhere here." So
that's it. They could go. They can go to Lisdonvarden, especially September.
Yeah. I told them they should research a bit more the next time they go on holidays.
Yeah, I think it's for people listening. I know it's mostly musicians who listen to the podcast, but for people who also are interested in Doolin in general, I think it's good to have the reminder that this is what this place is about. And yes, from time to time we were very lucky. For example, in Hotel Doolin or Fiddle and Bow, they do put something different from time to time, but it's not mixed together. Like it's not trying to.
Yes.
It would be a separate event.
Yeah.
And I think that's important.
Yeah, like I think a lot of people go out to the pubs here to hear traditional music, and they will get it in at least one, but obviously several of the pubs or venues every night. And yeah, there's other stuff going on, but we know what people are here for.
Yes, yeah. Possibly it's even more for locals as well. There's something different every now and then. It's nice to listen to something different. I suppose before we keep going, do you feel okay to play another set of tunes for us?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. so nice, Alan. And I was just thinking, it's a pleasure to hear you playing the banjo, because as you were saying, like anytime we get a chance to play together, it's usually on bouzouki or guitar. So it's a real treat to have you on banjo here today. Any names? What were those tunes?
They were 3 hop jigs. The first one is called The Black Rock. It's from a piping kind of tune book manuscript from the early 1800s. The second one is Cucanandy. Particularly, it's the version that I learned off the recording of Elizabeth Cronin singing it. So it's modally kind of out there in terms of what notes it is, from kind of the common version you might hear of that tune in sessions. And the third one is what I think is the king of all hop jigs, which is The Boys of Ballisodare.
Nice, lovely. And you're always handing me over the transition on a silver platter, because I want to ask you about 2 things. Your Tune Book Tuesday project, but just before that, like that Cucanandy, that's the tune you recorded with your wife Rachel on that lovely Duet album, isn't it?
Yeah, we recorded that. I think I recorded it in a kind of lower key, but I've been playing it up and kind of a bit higher recently. But yeah, we recorded an album, I don't know when, I can't remember, 4 or 5 years ago it came out anyway. Duet album of banjo and fiddle, and there's bouzouki and guitar backing on it. So yeah.
Are you doing all the backing on it?
I did all the bouzouki backing, and my friend Marty Barry did the guitar backing.
Lovely.
On it.
That's an album, like I tell people, try and get your hand on a copy, but I do believe there's not many physical copies left.
Well, we have no physical copies left. We did a small run of them at the start when we brought it out, and then we did 1 reprint since, and the second reprint was slower to sell than the first, and I think just physical media is not the hottest thing right now, and I think I've sold more digital versions of the album anyway, so
yeah,
physical version of it, I don't know where you would find one.
I think I actually saw a couple in Custies the other day.
There might be. I did give Custies the last ones I found,
but in case, we'll put the link to the digital downloads in the episode description, because it's a lovely album. And then you mentioned with that first tune again, you got it in a manuscript, and it's not the first time tune books came up in this conversation. Yeah. So you've a project that you've been doing since the start of the year.
Yeah.
Called Tune Book Tuesdays on social media, is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Can you tell us a bit more about it?
Yeah, so I suppose during the lockdown I set up a Patreon account for various music-y things I was doing, in terms of like video lessons for bouzouki, because there's not a lot of that kind of material out there, and I would also kind of share whatever I was working on, and it was a way of kind of helping out. I would get a lot of messages asking questions about certain things or stuff, videos of me playing or things with the band, and my Patreon account was kind of a way to like give people access to that kind of thing, because I would find it hard to reply to certain questions or put time into it and stuff. So at the start of this year I decided that I would every week on a Tuesday I would look at a tune book or a manuscript or collection, and I would find a tune in it, one that's not which I didn't consider very common or known, something I think is good, and I'd record a video of it, and then for the my Patreon subscribers, they would have sheet music for it, bouzouki tablature, mandolin, banjo tablature, and more information on it. In the case of where it's like a publicly available, like a public domain historical manuscript, I would like put that in the Patreon post as well. But originally I wasn't even going to put the videos public. I thought it was something I'd do for Patreon, but a lot of people are enjoying just the videos, so I've been putting them out, and they're usually only a minute or two long. I might play the tune once or I might play it twice, But yeah, I think this was week 36. So some weeks it's really easy to do. You open a book and it just, and some books or publications or manuscripts have like loads of common stuff in them and maybe not particularly suitable. Like for instance, loads of people are asking me when I'm going to do O'Neill's 1001 book. So I'm not sure when. Like I might save it till last. But there's again, I believe there's loads of stuff in that no one's really heard. So yeah, it's a bit of fun, and I've kind of it appeals to various interests in different ways, I think.
Yeah, I think the fact that your Patreon is brilliant, but I think, for example, for me who plays concertina, the fact that you post the videos on social media like Instagram and Facebook, is it?
Instagram, Facebook and YouTube.
And a little bit the links to all those in the description. I know that on a Tuesday I'm looking forward to just hearing what tune is going to come up, and some weeks like, oh, this is class, and you kind of want to learn it, and other weeks like, I just don't get this, because that's the thing, the sources are so different. Like it's not strictly Irish music. You can have tunes from
so there's a lot of there's been Irish, Scottish, English and Canadian sources, I suppose, maybe some American, but yeah, I think for the most part they're mostly all tunes that are kind of fitting under the banner of traditional music.
Yes.
And then like in the likes of a lot of the Canadian stuff I've got from it, when I've looked at Canadian books, it's been mostly Cape Breton stuff, and I think that, as I said before, there's a kind of parallel there. Like there's a lot of Cape Breton reels you'll hear in sessions and stuff. So but it's not to it there, and they're all rarer thing. Like I don't think any of the tunes you will hear in a session very readily. There's maybe some of the Irish ones you might hear, but they're not. None of them are session classics as of yet.
I'm still to hear one of your Tune Book Tuesday tune and be like, oh yeah, I play this, or like I don't think it happened, which is great, because we like any kind of project that people do, or the tune a day, or there's actually this lovely flute player who does the O'Neill's 1001. He does all the tunes.
I've seen that. That's really good.
That's another project which is great. But what I like about yours is like, these are tunes that most people have never heard. And it's like a way of it is a way of passing on tradition in another way. Yeah,
I think there's loads of stuff out there that involves kind of the common tunes. Like there's a lot of educational material and resources, and because this music is primarily learnt by ear, I don't, there's a lot of stuff out there for that kind of thing, and I'm kind of interested in what's on the fringes or what mightn't have made it through. I'm sure there's loads of great tunes that just never caught on because the community that played them just dissolved or whatever. So I'm just kind of interested in that kind of thing, and that's part of the reason I set up the Patreon, was to kind of do a lot of things like that are I find interesting. But I'm with you. I think it's very interesting and great, and the commitment that you're still going after 37 weeks, that's the hardest thing in any of those projects. And this podcast is a terrible example, because I did the first 4 episodes like in August and September last year, and it took me a year to just get back into it and find the time. I went to college in between, that's my excuse, but congratulations on the commitment. Well, there's been a few Wednesday mornings when it's been sorted, but nothing more than 9 hours late, I would say. Not too bad. You can still claim it was a different time zone or something. Yeah, that's it. It's Tuesday somewhere. Yeah. Nice. And actually, all these different tunes that are not very common, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the band you're in, Goitse, which is one of the, well, as far as I'm concerned, one of the best Irish bands that's touring and recording at the moment. Just released a new album a few months ago, and I suppose the connection with the
the rare tunes is that when you listen to Goitse, it's usually not to hear tunes that we play in sessions.
Yeah. So I joined Goitse about 5 years ago. I can't remember what year exactly at this stage. Obviously, everyone's notion of time has been wrecked by lockdowns. So Goitse is a band that was formed in the University of Limerick. 4 of the members were in the year above me in college, and the original banjo player was in my year. He's a good friend of mine, James Harvey. So he was planning a career change. He wanted to become a school teacher, so I ended up replacing him in the band around 5 years ago. So yeah, so it's always been a Goitse thing to, they don't want to play, they love playing sessions and having tunes and stuff, but on stage they don't want, a session. They want to play music of their own concoction. So there's been a lot of composition on every album so far in Goitse. I think we're on album 6, so I've recorded on album 5 and 6.
Could you tell us who is in the band for people who might not know Goitse, which probably anyone who knows Tunes from Doolin probably knows Goitse, but maybe not all the band members.
So there's Anya McGeaney on fiddle and vocals. She's from County Louth, Dundalk originally. There's Tyga Macker on piano and piano accordion, Conal O'Kane on guitar, and Colin Phelan on the bodhrán. And
yourself?
Myself on banjo and bouzouki on the newest album.
Cool, yeah, nice. The last album, Rusk, is it?
Rusk, yeah.
Rusk. It's lovely. What does that mean actually?
It's like an old Irish word for like a cry or an anthem or a song. There's even, you'll come across it in, like I first heard it, I came across it in a tune book. There's a slow air Ross Cahan na Moon, which is the battle song of Munster. So there's musical connections to it. Yeah,
and it's great that I've sort of saved the question for this podcast episode, because the album is actually would you say it's a little bit more I don't know what's actually it's more Rusk than previous albums?
I think just we landed on a vibe with it there's a lot of our own compositions on it. There's maybe a bit more of a experimental, playful sound to the production, as comparing it to the last one. I think, as you say, it does sound like Rusk. Like it has a certain aesthetic to it.
Yeah, kind of, the word that springs to mind now is kind of, it's not sad or anything. It's like contemplative.
I get. Yeah, and I think part of that is like a lot of the stuff was composed during lockdowns and things like that, so there is a bit of a, like, in certain cases on it, I'm sure there's stuff that was put together where if COVID didn't happen, or if it was put together during non-COVID time, the time wouldn't have been there to really work on some of the ideas.
It really sounds so nice. The result is lovely, and there's a few guests on the album as well. It really has such a full sound. It's really kind of comforting sound, like really well produced. Like, congratulations on the album.
Yeah, we're very happy with it.
What's it like for you between band work and your work as a solo musician or session musician? Do you need both? Do you separate them? Like, how do you go about it?
So I suppose pre-COVID there would be at least 2 months maybe of the year when I'd be away with the band touring, and then when I'm not touring I'd be playing pub gigs and pub sessions for work and also teaching. So I've kind of just always done both for the last 5 years. Obviously touring and things like that is getting back to it now, but it's not back to 100%, at least for us. We were in the USA for a month earlier in the year, and we've had a few gigs since that, but there's not been any long scale touring. We've actually done the most amount of Irish gigs we've ever done as a band this year.
That was great. Actually, there was one in Doolin, really enjoyable. It was great acts like that, and it's probably a result of COVID and lockdowns that there's been more programming of Irish bands in Ireland, where before it was all about playing abroad. So that was really
that's
good.
it. Yeah, like we're kind of always just been focused on the tours abroad. Ireland is a very small country, and to tour around it is, in a short space of time, maybe isn't the most achievable thing. So getting to do, I think we had a gig every weekend for a couple of months somewhere in the country, which is really nice.
Nice for a change.
Yeah.
Any plans for the near future, whether with the band or on your own? What's next? We've some gigs in the autumn. I think we're in Monaghan at some point, and I never look too far ahead in the calendar because musically I'm always quite busy, so it's kind of week to week. But probably do some recording either at the end of this year or the start of next year with Colin Phelan, the bodhrán player in Goitse. We got a residency in a theatre where we got to work on some music that works for both our instruments, banjo and bodhrán, so we'll hopefully start making a crack at recording that. Sounds great.
Apart from that, it's like any full-time musician, it's all small bits of work that you're constantly putting together.
The combination of everything will.
That's it.
Pub gigs and.
Yeah.
No, that's great. I'm really looking forward to have the opportunity to play a few more tunes with you in the pubs in Doolin over the next few weeks before the season ends. Thanks for coming, Alan. Thanks for the visit.
Thanks for having me.
Before I let you go, will we play a tune together?
Yeah, sounds good.
Nice. Thanks a million, Alan.
Cheers.
Bye-bye. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and thanks again so much to Alan Reid for coming on the show. If you'd like to keep up with Alan and his music, make sure to visit his Patreon page and social media profiles, and you can order his album with his wife Rachel and Goitse's albums online as well. All the links are in the description. Thank you again so much for listening to the Tunes From Doolin podcast, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss new episodes. It would be very helpful if you could tell your friends about the show too, share it on social media, and feel free to visit the Patreon page if you would like to support. If you would like to know more about the Tunes From Doolin project, you can check out the website and YouTube channel. You can also email me at tunesfromdoolin@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. Thanks again, and see you at the next episode.